Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut through the noise. Something is happening in 2025 that most people are either too afraid to talk about, too proud to admit, or too uninformed to understand. More Christians than ever before are embracing Islam. And rather than dismiss this as a trend or some political play, it's time we ask the real question. Let's be honest, most people today have no idea what they believe anymore. They float through life clinging to whatever ideology sounds fashionable this week, scrolling endlessly, numbing themselves with distractions, and calling it freedom. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Deep down, people are tired. Tired of confusion. Tired of the noise. Tired of a world that pretends to be tolerant yet offers nothing solid to stand on. That's where Islam enters, not as a trend, not as a rebellion, but as a source of unapologetic clarity in a time of spiritual fog. This isn't about religion replacing religion. This is about individuals, especially Christians, reaching a breaking point where questions deserve more than vague answers. They're stepping back and saying, what do I actually believe? What do I live for? And for many, Islam provides an answer that is structured, unwavering, and, most critically, clear. It doesn't sugarcoat life, it doesn't offer shortcuts, it lays down a code, a rhythm, a framework, one that isn't left open to endless reinterpretation. In a society where everything is relative and nothing is sacred, the absolutes found in Islam are magnetic. That's what's pulling people in, not coercion, not confusion, but conviction. Imagine waking up every morning knowing exactly when and how to pray, knowing that you're part of something global, unified, and ancient. That sense of direction doesn't feel restrictive, it feels like relief. It's not chaos, it's order, and when the world is burning around you, order isn't boring, it's life-saving. That's the kind of clarity people are starving for. And in 2025, more and more are realizing they're not going to find it on a smartphone, in a trend, or even in a modernized version of faith. They're finding it in Islam, and they're not apologizing for it. You want to know what real power looks like? It's not found in doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom. That's chaos dressed up as liberty. We've created a culture that tells people to follow your feelings, as if discipline is oppression and indulgence is liberation. But here's the irony no one's willing to face. The more unrestrained you are, the more lost you become. And right now, as we speak, people, especially Christians, are waking up to that truth. They're not turning to Islam because they want rules. They're turning to Islam because those rules actually set them free. Let's stop pretending discipline is a dirty word. You wake up at dawn, you pray, you fast, you show restraint, you serve something greater than your own desires. It's not a punishment, it's purpose. It gives you a spine, a rhythm, a reason. While the modern world is desperately chasing dopamine hits, Islam is giving people structure, timing, consistency, something to hold on to when everything else is falling apart. And I'll tell you what really makes people stop and think. Muslims don't just believe their faith, they live it. 5 prayers a day, every day, whether it's sunny or storming, Ramadan, an entire month of fasting, not for vanity, but for spiritual elevation. That level of commitment, that's not weakness, that's mastery, and deep down people respect that. They envy that. Because that kind of discipline leads to dignity, and we're living in a time that's stripped us of both. So, here's the uncomfortable truth. The modern world is collapsing under its own weight because it's forgotten how to say no. Islam teaches you to say no, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And the ones embracing it aren't being shackled, they're being sharpened. Let's get something straight. Humans are not designed to walk this world alone. We can pretend all we want that individualism is the pinnacle of success, that we don't need anyone, that we're stronger on our own. But look around. People are lonelier than ever, scrolling for connection, but never quite feeling seen. They're attending churches that feel more like performances, living in cities filled with millions but unable to name their neighbor. And somewhere in the silence between all the noise, they begin to crave something real, something rooted, something communal, and that's exactly what they're finding in Islam. This isn't just about belief, it's about belonging. Walk into a mosque, and it doesn't matter where you're from, what language you speak, or how much money you have. You're greeted as a brother, as a sister, as part of something vast and ancient. There's no VIP section. No division by status. It's not about networking. It's about connecting. And in a world obsessed with individual platforms and personal brands, that's revolutionary. Think about it. 5 daily prayers together if possible. Friday prayers, rows and rows of people bowing as one. Ramadan, an entire month where families, friends, even strangers gather night after night to break bread and pray together. There's rhythm, there's unity, there's meaning. And in that unity, people are finding a sense of identity they've been desperately searching for. What Christianity once offered in strong communities and shared rituals has, in many places, faded. And rather than drift aimlessly, some are turning toward a faith where community isn't an optional extra, it's the foundation. Islam doesn't just tell you what to believe, it shows you who you belong to. And in a time when so many feel invisible, that kind of brotherhood isn't just attractive, it's life-saving. Here's something that will absolutely stun people, especially those who have never taken the time to actually study what Islam teaches. Ready for it? Muslims deeply respect and revere Jesus. Yes, that Jesus, not as a symbol, not as a slogan, but as a mighty prophet, born of a virgin, a bringer of miracles, a man of immense wisdom and purpose. The same Jesus that Christians hold dear is honored in Islam, not dismissed, not denied, but celebrated. And for many Christians exploring Islam in 2025, that's not just surprising, it's transformative. Let's be honest. Most people outside of Islam have been fed an oversimplified, one-dimensional view of the faith. They assume it's foreign, even threatening, and couldn't possibly have anything in common with Christianity. But the more people dig, the more they find shocking overlap. And one of the most compelling is this: Jesus, or Isa, in Arabic, is a central figure in the Quran. His miraculous birth, his teachings, his compassion, his strength, that's all there, and it's revered. Now, does Islam view Jesus the same way Christianity does? No, Islam doesn't call him the Son of God. But what it does offer is a version of Jesus that is full of respect, power, and purpose, uncompromising and unpolluted by centuries of reinterpretation. For many Christians, this doesn't feel like abandoning Jesus. It feels like understanding him through a new, clearer lens. That's why so many aren't walking away from their love of Christ, they're deepening it. They're peeling back the layers, challenging inherited narratives, and finding a faith that doesn't erase their past, it enriches it. The discovery that Islam honors Jesus not only disarms fear, it sparks curiosity, and in that moment of curiosity, something extraordinary happens. Walls come down, and what replaces them is a bridge many are now courageously walking across. We've built a world that worships the temporary. Money, fame, looks, likes chase them fast, chase them hard, and chase them now. That's the anthem, but let me ask you, has it made people any happier? Are we more fulfilled, more connected, more at peace? Or are we more anxious, more distracted, more hollow than ever before? You can answer that yourself, and that's exactly why, in 2025, an increasing number of Christians are looking beyond the surface of life and turning toward Islam not for luxury, but for meaning. Not for materialism, but for something deeper. Islam doesn't tell you to chase the world, it tells you to rise above it. It teaches that this life is fleeting, that the real investment is in the life to come. Everything about the faith constantly redirects your attention from the now to the eternal. And that shift is radical in today's culture, where every second is monetized and every moment is about gratification. Islam pulls you back from that edge and says, wait, there's more, and it matters. The Quran doesn't entertain. It challenges, it makes you reflect. It forces you to confront your ego, your attachments, your direction. And people are craving that confrontation, whether they realize it or not. Christians, especially those tired of watered-down sermons and feel good theology, are finding in Islam a spiritual system that isn't afraid to be demanding because it's focused on what really matters. It's not about comfort, it's about conviction, it's not about prosperity, it's about purpose. And when the world tells you to numb yourself with pleasure, Islam says, wake up, your life is a test. Your soul is the priority, your actions have weight, and for those willing to listen, that message isn't harsh, it's liberating. Because nothing feels more powerful than finally understanding what you're really living for. Here's a truth bomb that'll rattle some cages, changing your faith especially from Christianity. Islam is not a decision people make lightly. It's not a whim or a fad. It's the ultimate act of bravery. In a world obsessed with comfort zones and groupthink, stepping away from what you've always known and embracing something radically different takes guts. Real courage, and that's exactly what we're seeing in 2025. Most people confuse conversion with weakness or confusion. They assume those who switch faiths are lost, vulnerable, or misled, but nothing could be further from the truth. The ones choosing Islam are not running away, they're running towards something, toward a faith that demands integrity, honesty, and commitment. They are rejecting convenience and opting for conviction, and that kind of choice isn't just bold, it's revolutionary. Think about the pressure involved, the family questions, the social backlash, the internal struggle. To choose Islam is to declare, I'm willing to face all that, because this truth is worth it. That's not capitulation. That's defiance, defiance against complacency, against superficiality, against a culture that values popularity over principle. What's more, Islam itself demands this courage. It's not a passive faith. It calls for action, for accountability, for change. And those who accept it are answering that call. They're stepping into a role of responsibility, not escape. They're saying no to easy answers and yes to deep, sometimes uncomfortable, transformation. This is why the wave of conversions isn't just a statistic, it's a statement. A statement that truth still matters, that personal growth requires sacrifice, that faith, when truly owned, is a declaration of strength, not weakness. And in that declaration, many are finding not only new beliefs but new lives.